I'd love to hit on those mental health things if you're open to it. I know a lot of
Yeah, of course.
yeah, I know a lot of goalies out there, you know, are going through things like that, and it's tough because like you don't hear a lot of people talking about it. More so like nowadays, which is great. Like
Yeah.
it's becoming more common for people to realize, oh yeah, like everyone goes through this. Like it's cool to talk about. I don't have to keep it bottled in. But I'd love to hear what some of the challenges you were facing and how you overcame them, if you're cool with that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, mental illness actually runs in my family. And along with like the pressure of being a goalie, which I love and it's great for me, but it can also be kind of taxing at times as well. Especially if you kind of go through a slump. Um, you're not playing great, whatever. But yeah, actually last year in the fall, I was playing the best lacrosse of my life. Um, and once the fall ended over winter break, I kind of started to feel down a little bit and stuff, and came back, and it just continued throughout the start of the spring. I actually got diagnosed with depression last year, depression and anxiety, and that was a huge like shock to me because I had watched people in my family battle it my whole life, and I never thought that like I would be doing the same thing. And it's not a weakness of any kind or anything like that, but it's definitely something that I had to work through, and I feel like I have now. And I like it's under control, and I feel a whole lot better than I did. But I'd say, yeah, for younger goalies, especially, like just like focus on your mind the most, or younger players in general. Because everybody says like goalie is 80% mental and 20% physical, and I completely agree because you can have the talent, you can have the skills, but if your brain's not there, your mind's not there, um, then your body's not going to be able to keep up.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Well, thank you for sharing that. Cause yeah,
Oh, of course.
even if like you're a goalie and you're riding high and you listen to that and you're like, well, that's not me. Like I don't have depression. Like that, that's not me. It can change like that. You know what I mean? Like all of a sudden, maybe you get pulled or you have a bad game or a string of bad games or like you play poorly in front of this big coach. And then all of a sudden you get like into this rut. And yeah, you've got to dig yourself out mentally. You've got to learn how to get out of that hole, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, I'd just say um, focus on like one thing that makes you happy.
Mm.
Something that helped me a lot was um, just like talking to people. I leaned on my family a lot during that time, and um, they helped me out a bunch. And like even if it's not something like a diagnosed like mental illness, even if it's just you had a bad game and you're feeling kind of down on yourself, like talk to a teammate, talk to a friend, talk to a family member.
Right.
Any of that, I promise, will help. Um, it helped me for sure, and it's, I mean, that's the only way that you'll be able to overcome it is just talking about it.
Yeah. I totally agree. I totally agree. I think as goalies and a lot has to do with being a man too. Like we just keep it inside, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's kind of how I was raised. Like you got problems, like you keep that inside. And I think that, it tends to then bubble up, right? And then boom, explode. So yeah. And sometimes even just talking to someone, like it gets resolved. I remember I was talking with a young goalie and they had this feeling of like I'm blowing it for my team. Like that was kind of
yeah,
the feeling, which can be common. And then I said, like, have you talked about that with anybody on your team? And they said, no, I haven't. And I'm like, all right, I want you to go do that, right? Just pull somebody aside and like just have a conversation. And guess what? Like when they talk to that person, he's like, no, you're not blowing it for the team. Are you kidding me? You know what I mean? So like they had
yeah,
these ideas going on in their head that weren't even true. And just
yeah.
by voicing it, like you get some resolution. So yeah, I think that's a really strong, really great piece of advice you just gave right there. What were the conversations like that you had? I mean, was it just like more, I don't know, like kind of pumping you up? Was it more, you got this? Was it more, hey, here's what I think you should do? I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit of everything. I mean, like I said, I'm really close to my family, so they kind of know. what mood I'm in at the time. So like if they
Yep.
needed to pump me up before like a practice or a big game or something, they would. But a lot of times it was just kind of just talking through things. I mean, just sit like try to call at least one of my parents a couple times a week. Um, just kind of check in, and they always ask how I'm doing, and I try my best not to lie to them and tell them what's actually going on. So I think just honest conversations are what helped me the most. Whether it be um, my dad telling me like that, like I'm good enough to play at this level, and I need to just focus on that, or um, if it's my parents just telling me they love me. I mean, everything makes a difference.
Yeah.
Happiness after a game was like a big one for me too. Like if I didn't play well, I was like, I'm not hanging out with anyone. Like I'm like in a hole. And so like a big thing for me was like not missing up moments because of that. Like and that like lacrosse doesn't need to be my happiness, but it can be like my outlet. Cause like I have struggled with mental health like my entire life. And so um like kind of like using it as my outlet and not letting it build more onto myself of like not being able like all that stuff. Like I'm very close with my sisters, and so like I was missed them a lot, and so like I would be like something wasn't going right in their lives, and they would call me about it, and I would be like, oh, I'm not playing well in lacrosse and I'm not helping my sisters. Like I would kind of spiral. And so like the biggest thing he's been telling me is like the reason I started sports was an outlet. Like I didn't know at the time what mental health was when I was whatever age, but like that was my outlet. Like I had a crummy day at school, I had a crummy day with friends, bad day with my family. Like I'd work my butt off in sports and I'd take it out there. Like that is how was my outlet my entire life. And I kind of like lost that because I put so much pressure on myself in lacrosse, and learning to get that back, it almost like made me love the sport even more. I'm the oldest of three girls, me and my sisters, and my parents, like they're great parents, love them. My little sister's like, you know how every parent kind of has like their child. Don't deny it, but like
Well,
my
it's definitely
sister,
me for my parents. But anyway, go on.
but so like we're all 2 years apart, and so I was just kind of like grow up, like here you go. And so my dad was always like with my middle sister, and my mom was always with the littlest one because of course mom's with the baby.
Right.
And so I was always just like kind of been like, okay, like I'm expected to just be able to do this, I'm expected to be able to like just like laundry, I do my own laundry, like did the dishes when I was like however whatever age. And just like expectations and like that front, like just do your homework, no one's gonna be make sure you do it, like just do your homework, like you have to go to practice, like you have to do well in sports, like all of this stuff. Like I just felt like I had so many expectations on me, and like as to be a role model for my sisters as well. And so I think I just like, even though I know if I felt they'd still love me, like I couldn't really comprehend that a lot. Like that was very hard for my brain to comprehend, because it's been instilled in me since I was little, like not by anyone, by myself. I've made this up in my head that I
Right.
had to be perfect and I had to like set the expectations and like all that sort of stuff. And so I tend to put a lot of pressure on myself to meet like the expectation. And if like I didn't like I didn't play well, oh, like everyone at home is going to be disappointed in me and that sort of stuff, which isn't true. I
Right.
came home and I did not play my best season that I know I'm capable of. And I came home and everyone was like, that was great. And I was like, thank you. Like just learning to be like, okay, thank you. Like that's also the thing I'm working on, saying like taking the compliments, not spiraling backwards. But yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, because I know like, mental health can be a tough thing to talk about. And there's a lot of goalies out there that probably feel the exact same way as you. I know now that you explained it that way, I've gotten messages from young goalies that are like, they explain that like, oh, my parents, even as a youth, like my parents bought me all this equipment. Like they put in so
Yeah.
much. Right. And now like, I can't let them down. And so
Yeah.
they feel that, and and they live with that and it can be very taxing on you mentally. And so I think hearing other stories and hearing different ways to deal with it is a big help. So thank you.
I agree. I think also like I like to tell I'm very open about like my like mental health and stuff because like when I was little, I had no clue what any of this was. Like I was just like, there's something wrong with me. Like, why do I feel like this? Like, why am I stressed? Like I didn't even realize that like I had very bad anxiety and like I was probably like very depressed as a kid. Like I didn't even understand that because I was just like, oh my God, there's like this isn't like normal. Like I don't know. Like there's nothing like that can be like actually wrong with you. Like you can't be like actually sick. Like so yeah.
Right. Yeah. What would you say then to a young goalie that is listening to this and feeling like they're going through some mental health struggles? Is there like a general piece of advice you would give them?
I mean, personally, I would say talking to someone like sports psychs. I didn't even know that was a thing. Like when I first started therapy, I was just a regular therapist. And like when I started meeting with sports psychs, I was like, wow, like game changer. How they can incorporate and like help you use sports the way like they're meant to be used almost. Like they are supposed to be an outlet and just like being able to get that back because that's how you initially like when you start sports unless your parents threw them in there and you hate sports and they're just like you have to move which you're probably not playing a sport anymore but
right.
Like when I first started sports that was like an outlet and that's for most kids. Like most kids you see go out there and they're like hustling their butt off for that ball and they're kicking as hard as they can like or whatever in soccer whatever sport it is like that's like their fun part of their day. They just were exhausted all day in school and like this is the fun. I think just bringing back the fun, but also not putting too much pressure on it to be fun. Because I think that's a big thing too. I was like, why am I not having fun? Like, why is this not fun for me right now? Like, you can have off days. Like, that is normal. But like letting it be fun also, like you didn't make a save. So what? Have fun with it. Like go out and like play it a little differently. Like mess with the shooters. Kind of just making it fun for yourself is a very big thing that I learned.